The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar on the future of Canada's solar industry. My name is Brian Douglas. I'm the VP of Sales, HES PV. Today, I'm joined with Wes Johnson, who's Vice President of CanREA, which is the merger of CanSIA and CanWEA to create a unified voice for the renewable energy plus storage in Canada. Wes, I'd like to thank you for coming on and giving us an overview. But before I hand it on to Wes, I just want to give a quick slide and overview of what HES is. So HES is primarily a wholesale distributor. We have warehousing all across Canada, but we also have a series of value add-on services such as engineering and training. If you have any questions about who your sales rep is or any questions about additional offerings that HES can help with your business, feel free to reach out. We've got a general sales email at sales@hespv.com or call into our number. We'll pick up with your local rep. Okay, with that, I'll be handing off the presentation to Wes Johnson. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Brian, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. And I'd like to thank HES PV for providing me with this opportunity to speak with you all today. So before we do get into things here, I just want to say first and foremost that I hope you and your families are all safe and healthy during this challenging time, and that your businesses are also surviving and resilient and moving forward as well. I know it's a challenging time for us all, and so just want to share those words with you as well. So just a quick bio, as Brian mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Business Development, Finance and Operations at the new amalgamated Canadian Renewable Energy Association. Prior to that, I was the President and CEO of the Canadian Solar Industries Association, where I spent a number of years in various management roles in relation to policy development, government relations, finance and operations. And so I have quite an extensive background in the renewable sector here in Canada.
Wes, it looks like you've self-muted somehow on your end. I don't know how that's happened. See if we can, there you go. Oh,
I'm back.
There you're back on now.
So that was really odd, actually. It took a few tries to get off that. So Brian, if you can just let me know if that happens again, that'd be great. Thanks.
Will do.
All right, so hopefully no more technical challenges going forward. So as Brian mentioned, CanSIA and CanWEA, we amalgamated on July 1st of this year. So very, very exciting news for us and for the industry. Maybe before sharing more of how that story came about, I just want to give a little bit of a history recap of CanSIA itself as well. So the Canadian Solar Industries Association actually formed in 1992 and was, interestingly enough, actually an amalgamation of two previous solar associations. The first one created in 1978. So the long history of CanSIA and the previous organizations goes back quite some time. During the CanSIA era, we really were the leading voice as it related to the solar energy industry. We also hosted a number of conferences and networking events throughout the country. And during that time, CanSIA really oversaw the installation of over 3,000 megawatts of solar PV throughout the country. So certainly a high growth era for the association. And on a day-to-day basis, really the association worked with provincial and federal governments and also regulators like electricity system operators, energy regulators in provinces to help create new policy and regulatory opportunities, essentially to grow the market and grow the opportunities for our members over time. And just a few of those examples, for example, in Ontario, we played a key role in terms of advocating for the Green Energy Act a number of years ago now, which resulted in the successful microfit and fit programs. In Alberta, a little bit more recently, we were involved in advocating for the residential and commercial solar rebate program, We're trying to get a version of that back again. In Nova Scotia, we worked very closely with the provincial government in combination with the federal government to secure federal funds to start the Solar Homes program in that province as well. And we're also active in BC, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, PEI, and assist our members and key stakeholders in those regions to move policy regulations and programs forward to, again, grow the market and provide our members with business opportunities. I'll talk a little bit more towards the end of the webinar about our federal work, but we're very, very focused on federal advocacy at this point in time and trying to bring forward incentives and programs to grow the residential and small commercial sector as well. So in regards to the new organization, both CanSIA and CanWEA, we actually started having this conversation around, does it make sense for us to amalgamate? That conversation started late in 2018. Both organizations put together a joint board committee to review the situation and to really look at the business case around this. And at the end of the day, there were some real clear drivers for the business case to amalgamate. Number one, it was very clear that our member companies were already increasingly involved in the multi-technology space, so solar plus storage, wind plus storage, and there's also companies doing solar plus wind plus storage. So the market, the industry was moving in that direction, and it was determined that having an association, a multi-tech association to represent the shifting membership made a lot of sense as well. So not only in regards to our members, but in terms of those solutions, those integrated solutions, it was clear that customers were requiring these types of solutions now as well, whether it was homeowners and commercial building owners or utilities, governments and system operators. They were looking for integrated solutions that were more reliable, more flexible, and created more value for them as well. And probably the key driver for us is in this competitive energy space in Canada, and when it comes to government relations and advocacy, it's a very, very crowded space. And so it was determined that if we did pool our resources, if we did collaborate more effectively on the government relations side of things, that we'd have a much stronger and unified voice, thus giving us more influence when talking with political and regulation decision makers, and ultimately to better capture those new market opportunities in the energy sector and to try to create those opportunities as renewable opportunities. So at the end of the day, it was a very compelling case, and we did bring this proposal to our members in November of 2019, and both members overwhelmingly supported the proposal. We had 98-99 support from both organizations, so it was very clear that the membership was behind this, and it gave us a very clear mandate in terms of moving forward with the amalgamation. Since November, we've been very active in terms of putting together a transition plan and ultimately resulting in the amalgamation on July 1st, 2020. So why do we do what we do? We did go through an exercise in terms of determining our mission and our vision, and really we felt that our mission was to advocate on behalf of the wind energy, solar energy, and energy storage industries to benefit Canada's economy and energy future. We also feel that it's very important for us to educate stakeholders within the renewables energy sector, but also through other audiences as well, about the low cost, reliable, flexible, scalable solutions that our members and our industries can provide. And the final mission is to ensure that we create a forum, an association, a group whereby our members can collaborate and we can work together to grow the industry. So at the end of the day, our vision is to ensure that wind energy, solar energy, and energy storage play a critical role in transforming Canada's energy mix. And to us, that really means that we want to be at the table when customers and governments are making decisions around investments in infrastructure, investments in electricity, and we want to ensure that they have all the right information and the best case put forward to them when they are making these major decisions, and ultimately hoping that we have renewable energy as the key technology sector that's growing here in Canada to meet those solutions. And our members and our companies are well positioned. So we do have a very capable industry. Our technology is low cost and reliable, and Canadians ultimately, at the end of the day, want this type of technology and these types of benefits as well. So we feel that we're very, very well positioned as an association and as an industry. So further to that, with our mission and vision in place, we did put together our strategic plan. I won't go through this in great detail, but essentially the number one goal here is to develop market opportunities for our members. So when it comes to reforms in the electricity market, we want to be at those regulation tables with the OEB, with the AUC, and with other regulators across Canada to ensure that our technologies are represented fairly and that they are benefited fairly as well. And also when working with governments, we want to ensure that they are looking at policies that will grow the energy pie for our renewable energy industries as well. In addition to that, we want to work with all stakeholders, government, regulators, utilities, and others to ensure that the infrastructure is in place that will allow greater deployment of our technologies as well. So for example, looking at electric vehicles, looking at smart grid, and grid modernization. These are all very important elements to ensuring that our industries grow over time. Second key area is sustainable operations and stewardship. So this is essentially looking at our industries once these projects are already operating in the ground and creating electricity. And so the number one key thing here is just ensuring that we do have a stable policy environment that ensures that these projects are protected and continue to operate going forward. Also, for example, programs like the Alberta Residential and Commercial Incentive Program. As we know, with the change in government, there was a shift in that program. We certainly want to be at the table to monitor these programs and try to do our best effort to try to keep them in place or to bring them back in a different form as well. We also want to work with industry players to ensure that there's industry benchmarks and to ensure that we're doing everything we can to ensure health and safety and workforce development within our sectors. And when it comes to reforms to the electricity markets, we want to work with regulators. Once systems are in place, how can we actually create greater value with those systems? How do we optimize those systems, and how can we find ways to extend the operation of those existing assets within the regulatory frameworks that exist? Another key element of our strategic plan is education and awareness. And we are a small organization, relatively speaking, compared to some of the other associations and some of the other industries and energy industries that are out there. So we do have to be very smart, effective, efficient with our resources and how we go about doing our business, but definitely trying to inform stakeholders and key audiences about the benefits of our technologies is really, really key. And because we are so small, we want to optimize strategic relationships with community organizations and with other not-for-profits and other key stakeholders and audiences to get our message across to those final decision makers as well. And lastly, a sustainable association. So we want to make sure that we're financially viable, but we also want to make sure that we're creating a value proposition that does provide value to our members. We do want to try to grow our membership, because the more members we have, the stronger voice we have, the more resources we have in order to help advocate and to grow the market and grow these opportunities for our members as well. So to do that, we have a very effective team. And if you look at this list, you may know some of those names already. So we have an executive with a tremendous amount of experience and expertise. We have a policy team that is located throughout Canada in various markets that also has a lot of expertise and experience. In total, there's almost 75 years of renewable energy experience as it relates to policy and regulations and just market development in general. And so we have an extremely strong and committed team at CanREA that's working on behalf of our members. So we're very, very lucky actually to have such a strong team right out of the gate. In addition to that, our support staff in terms of business development, finance and operations, and communications has been with us for quite some time. We are looking at hiring in a few places as well. So we do certainly have a very solid staff working on behalf of our members. So in order to move forward on some of those things that we're working on, and I'll touch on this a little bit more later on in the presentation, but we do have a number of different policy and regulatory caucuses and committees. These are essentially member groups where we bring forward information about what's going on in these different markets. So it's very important in terms of understanding market trends. But this is where we do a lot of our brainstorming. This is where we put together our positions, our recommendations to governments, to regulators, in order to grow these markets. So we don't do this alone. We don't do this in the silo. We work very effectively with our members in order to try to create that balance in terms of the right solutions, the right recommendations, and then ultimately it's our job as the association to try to bring those recommendations forward and get them adopted by government. So as mentioned already, communications is a big part of what we're trying to do going forward to educate key stakeholders and audiences across Canada. But we also have a number of member communications. So we do distribute monthly newsletters to members where we do provide information in regards to what's going on in the policy space. We also provide information in regards to the different events and networking opportunities that are available and some of the new member value propositions that we may be bringing forward as well. So we're also very active in terms of external communications too, in terms of being on social media. We're trying to create monthly blogs, get very engaged in terms of media relations to ensure that in the broader audience with general Canadians and with policymakers that we're getting our voice heard, sharing our messages and communicating the benefits of our technologies, which hopefully will lead to our supporting our overall government relations work as well. In 2021, we will be releasing a vision document, which will focus a lot on how we're going to communicate these different messages and focus on these different strategic stakeholders. And so certainly we're excited to start working on that document, which will really create the roadmap going forward for us, in addition to our strategic plan here, and something that we're excited to share with members in the latter part of next year. So also just quickly, we are launching our events calendar in early September of this year. As you all may know, our kind of big flagship in-person event, Electricity Transformation Canada, was canceled due to COVID-19, like many other events. So the in-person event will take place next year in Toronto in November. But we are looking at hosting a number of virtual events throughout the fall. So to replace the kind of ETC Electricity Transformation Canada event, we are launching our virtual Canadian Renewable Energy Forum, November 9th and 10th. So we'll be sharing more information about that next week on our website and through our member communications in mid-September. We also will be launching our Virtual Operations Summit in January of next year. And so that's focused more on the O&M side of things. So systems that are already in the ground or already on roofs. This is kind of a new area for the solar industry in terms of really highlighting this at the conference level. So this is really a unique opportunity for the solar industry to get together and talk more about the O&M side of things. In the past, a lot of our conferences have been more focused on kind of the project development side of things and getting programs and policies up and running to create those market opportunities. We'll also have various networking opportunities next year, hopefully, and we're hoping that these will be in person. So a few golf courses in some of our key markets in Ontario and Alberta, a summer solstice networking event in Toronto, and we will start monthly webinars beginning in October. So this is where we'll be sharing quality content with our members. But in light of COVID-19, we're also going to try to provide virtual networking opportunities there as well. So Brian asked me to share some information about our membership benefits and services and our value proposition. So I'll go through some of those items as well. And just to kick things off, we already have a number of members that are part of the new organization. So we have over 260 members that are involved in various sectors. So manufacturers, project developers, installers, supply chain partners and other service providers throughout the country in solar, wind, and energy storage. So we have a very, very strong base of members. And our members are involved in various types of scales of projects as well. So not only different types of technologies or integrated technologies, but both in the front of the meter space and the behind the meter space. So residential, small commercial to big utility scale projects as well. And since we launched in July, we also have new members joining us, which is great too. So I mentioned behind the meter and in front of the meter. We decided to use this approach when categorizing our members. We thought about, does it make sense to do wind, solar, and energy storage as different categories? But that didn't make sense because at the end of the day, the real idea here was to think about how these integrate. But it was, it was clear that we have different scales of projects. So to structure the organization and to structure the board and governance side of things, we elected to go with this type of categorization of members behind the meter and in front of the meter. So behind the meter members are essentially members who provide products and services that directly relate to electricity consumers. And typically these are connected to consumers' electricity infrastructure. So someone's home, for example, or a commercial building, we might see solar on top of that building. When it comes to front of the meter, these are typically like the larger scale utility scale projects, and they're typically connected to the distribution or transmission system. And so that gives a bit of an overview in regards to the different types of categories that we have. And I'll drill down a little bit more in terms of the member benefits here as well. So the first couple here, industry knowledge and profile and branding. So really we share a lot of critical information as it relates to news, policy updates, regulatory updates, not only through our newsletters, but through our various caucuses and committees as well. So as mentioned, we have staff on the ground in various markets throughout Canada, very connected to government offices and political offices, but also with regulators. We work closely with government relations firms and other consultants. So this allows us to be really connected to where those decisions are being made. Sometimes it can be challenging to have those decision makers change things to the way that we like, but that's obviously part of it as well. But certainly it's important to stay informed about what does the landscape look like. Obviously governments have other things that they're trying to bring forward and other concerns sometimes, for example, COVID. So they do have pressing issues and they have pressing or conflicting interests by times as well. Being connected to those political players and to those key regulators and decision makers is key, and that does allow us to provide critical information to our members. We do have opportunities for members to increase their profile as well, whether it be with other members within the association throughout our conferences and events, and we'll have sponsorship opportunities as well. But we also have a member directory where a number of Canadians every day will come to our website to find an installer to essentially to put solar on their homes. And so we get hundreds of Canadians looking at this website every day. So that may be something that is of interest to this group as well. It can certainly help as a lead generator. So I talked about this a little bit already in terms of our policy development and advocacy work. I would say this is really the crux of what we do. This is our bread and butter in terms of working with regulators and political offices to develop policies and regulations to grow the market and grow opportunities for our members. And again, we do a lot of this through the different caucuses and committees. And they're structured similar to what I mentioned earlier in regards to front of the meter caucuses, and we do have behind the meter caucuses as well. So for example, our National BTM Renewables Caucus, that would be a national caucus whereby our members would be able to participate in that if they're at a certain membership level. But branching out of that, we'll also have subcommittees. So we'll have provincial subcommittees for Ontario, for BC, for Alberta, for Nova Scotia, for example, and other provinces. but we'll also have subcommittees that may be related to a particular topic or something related to operations as well. So those are really structured around what are the needs of our members, what are the needs of the industry. And so for those that want to help shape those conversations, those who want to be involved in understanding the trends as they kind of happen in real time, really being a part of these caucuses and committees is the way to do that. So also there's other ways to get involved with your organization in terms of being a part of the board as well. And I'll speak to that probably in the Q&A session a little bit as well. But we do have a board of 15 members, and we actually have 5 that are allocated to the BTM sector only, 5 that are allocated to the FTM sector only, and 5 that are actually open. So those open seats are based on the financial contributions of BTM and FTM members within the organization. So it's a very equitable way of providing a clear voice for each group, but also ensuring that as the industry shifts and changes over time, that there's ways to reflect that within the governance system as well. We are also developing cost savings programs. And so, for example, we're working with Via Rail, we work with Good Life Fitness and other organizations, and members of our association can actually get savings as it relates to those companies and those organizations as well. We're looking at bringing in other affinity partner programs as well related to insurance, maybe around accounting. So we're essentially looking to find ways that small companies, small businesses can save money through affinity programs. And if members have ideas, we're very open to hearing ideas around how a group program, for example, can be struck with an organization. And we want to essentially then deliver those cost savings onto our members as well. And in addition to those types of savings, we do have various networking opportunities throughout the year, as mentioned earlier, and members do get significant discounts to those events as well. So this is just a quick glance at our membership fee structure. And the way that we have developed this is to ensure that there is a home for all members. So as it relates to front of the meter or behind the meter, but it's also related to value that they want to receive from the organization. So if a company wants to pay more, they can get more value. At a lower level, they would get less value than the upper levels. But we certainly have structured things in a way whereby we believe that we're providing good value to all members in each of these categories. But we obviously know that companies have different needs and they have different resources to put towards things like this as well. So we try to provide lots of variety here and a value-based approach as it relates to membership fees. And so with that, we're certainly open to hearing from companies that are interested in joining the organization. If there are members that are listening to this today, we would like to thank you for joining the association, the new association, and for your past support as well within CanSIA. At the end of the day, the association is only as strong as its members. The more members that we have joining the association, the more resources we have to fight to grow the renewable sector in Canada. It allows us to have a stronger voice when it comes to dealing with political decision makers as well. And so it's not easy making these shifts in policy and working with government. It can be a bit of a grind. So there is a lot happening in the background by times. We do try to share as much of that information through the caucuses and committees as possible. And so I hope the information that I shared today was helpful in terms of giving you a better overview in regards to what we do and what we're trying to do for our members as well. And I hope that it does pique your interest to maybe have a conversation with us as well to learn a little bit more about how membership with CanREA may be right for your organization as well. So Brian, with that, I will pause there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that yourself or callers may have as well.
Perfect. I'm just going to go into a few questions, and then in the meantime, if you want to write in some questions, there's a question section in the GoToMeeting. So in the meantime, I'm going to go through a few things here. So Wes, can you tell me why or explain why it was the right time for the major renewable energy associations to merge?
Yeah, so the main reason I would say is just the changing market environment and technology changes as well. So we saw our companies, our member companies getting more involved in energy storage. We saw more of our companies involved in wind energy, or wind companies becoming more involved in solar as well over time. So there was certainly trends in place in terms of where the market was going. Technology has obviously advanced quickly, whereby these integrated solutions not only are more economical, but they make better sense in terms of the flexibility and reliability that it provides customers, whether it be utilities, system operators, or just someone's home or cottage. And frankly, at the end of the day, the energy space is very competitive. There's a lot of voices out there. We're kind of the new kid on the block. There are other energy sectors that are kind of bigger, better funded. And we felt that if we did work together more collaboratively, it would help us have that stronger voice when working with government and with regulators. And I would also say, in addition to that, it helps us be more resilient. And obviously, no one was planning for COVID-19. But it has allowed us to be more resilient, I would say. We're able to pool the resources of both organizations. We had to make some tough decisions as well, as it relates to staff, and other companies may have had to do the same thing in these challenging times. But overall, it has made us more resilient in this challenging time too. So we couldn't foresee that, but it certainly has been beneficial. So at the end of the day, the market is moving in this direction, members are moving in this direction. We need to have a stronger voice if we're going to grow the renewable sector. And so those were really the compelling reasons to do this.
Good. Okay, if I'm a small to medium-sized solar installer, I know you went over this a little bit before, but why should I become a CanREA member? Basically, what's in it for me? Maybe if you could just put a bow on some of the previous member benefits that you had talked about.
Yeah, sounds good. And I'll categorize this in kind of two ways. First, kind of being very, very practical, and the second being a little bit more kind of long-term. I guess, first of all, we are trying to provide our members with the most up-to-date information in terms of market trends, policy changes, regulatory changes, so our members can shift their business operations as needed. And so it is a rapidly evolving space. And so information is key, and being well informed is really, really important for anyone who's trying to be competitive and to survive in this competitive market as well. So the information that we provide, the news that we share, I think is really, really valuable to people on the ground. We are also trying to provide cost savings to kind of those smaller businesses as well. We know it's competitive. We know it's not easy, and COVID is making it even more challenging right now. So we want to find ways to use our kind of bulk membership power to bring savings to members through different cost savings programs. And Julie Mayer, who is our manager of business development and membership, her philosophy is anyone who signs up, for example, at the $1,000 level, she wants them to save at least $1,000 through our membership offering. So whether that's on event discounts, whether that's through via rail discounts, or through Good Life discounts for companies' employees, she wants to provide at least $1,000 worth of savings there. So essentially the membership pays for itself at the end of the day. So those are kind of the real practical things. The other element is really in terms of helping the association do what we do. At the end of the day, it does take resources to work with government, with regulators, to communicate with all of those different sectors, and we are stronger together. I certainly realize that some companies have different needs and certainly different resources to put towards things like this, but even just being a member at the collaborator $1,000 category, it helps. Every little bit does help. and it provides the resources that we need to fight for this industry. And it certainly is a grind, and we need all the help that we can get. And the more we work together on this, the more we can grow those business opportunities for the overall industry, but for your businesses individually over time as well.
Good. This one's a little bit of a pointed question. It's basically because CanREA basically deals with a lot of large and utility scale solar and wind members. How do we make sure that the BTM boots on the ground, smaller installers are being represented fairly in this new organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly one that came up a lot as we were sharing the proposal with our members as well. Even at CanSIA, we had a lot of FTM and BTM members. So although we didn't segment our membership that way, it's probably fair to say that there was a group of FTM members and a group of BTM members. And so we certainly realized that going into this, and we wanted to ensure that we had a better model that helped to ensure that both of those groups had a strong voice within the organization. And so what we did, number one, is clearly identify a home for both of those types of members. So we have the two categories as mentioned. And we also have caucuses and committees whereby each of those groups have a voice and have a place to work with staff and with government and regulators to bring forward those different policy and regulation recommendations as well. And another key structural element is on the governance side of things and the board of directors side of things. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a structure in place whereby both FTM and BTM are guaranteed a strong voice at the board table. And so we have 5 dedicated FTM seats, 5 dedicated BTM seats, and then kind of the open 5 we talk about for a total of 15. And those open 5 are allocated based on the financial contributions coming into the organization. So for example, if the FTM sector is providing 80% of the overall membership revenues and BTM is providing 20%, then we would split that final 5 80-20. So 1 seat BTM and 4 seats FTM, for example. And so this, again, allows both sectors to have a very, very strong voice. And I would actually say a stronger voice than what we possibly had within the CanSIA organization in the past. But it also, I think a lot of people believe that the BTM sector is going to grow over time. And so whether it's the residential and commercial sector, but that BTM sector is likely going to grow over time. That's where we can easily put solar. That's where the load is. So it does make sense. We do see this in other more mature markets as well. And so we wanted to ensure that there was a flexibility within this model that could shift over time as the market changed and as different amounts of membership dollars came in from the different sectors as well. So I hope that does come across in the structure. It was something we thought a lot about, and personally something that I put a lot of time and effort into, and something that I am proud of in terms of the structure that we do have in place there to ensure that the BTM sector does have a very strong voice out of the gate and over time as well.
Thanks for that. Here's a question that's also been mimicked by one of the people in the question section, but we understand that CanREA is working on federal incentives. Can you explain what incentives are being worked on that would specifically help the BTM customers? And just as a follow-up, how likely do you feel these initiatives are to land?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, there's 2 key recommendations that we have brought forward to the federal government as part of their budget consultation. So we've made various submissions over the last number of months, and just a more recent one probably in the last week or 2 actually. And so as it relates to kind of the residential and small commercial sector, one of the key recommendations is to have the government of Canada essentially allocate $1 billion towards a federal rebate to support rooftop solar for households, businesses, and community buildings. And then we would also see energy storage being a part of that as well. So we do find that provinces have different goals. Provinces are obviously, they have jurisdiction over the actual electricity market itself. So it can be a little bit challenging for a government to engage in energy sectors, but one thing that they can do is provide incentives across Canada. And so this $1 billion fund is certainly one of the key asks we have for the federal government. And this would be a key incentive program, rebate program that would really help to really grow the industry, not only in key markets, but all markets across Canada. So this is a very important ask and a very far-reaching ask, I would say, as well. And you may recall in the campaign, the Liberals did mention interest-free loans up to $40,000 from CMHC for deep retrofits and for renewable energy applications as well. So that is something that we are asking for as well, for the government to follow through on this commitment and put in place interest-free loans for Canadians that would help them essentially to finance the installation of these projects. So those are really guided for the residential and the small commercial sector across Canada. And in terms of the second question, it has been, frankly, it has been a little frustrating in terms of getting the government's attention on these over the last number of months. Obviously, there's a very clear reason why COVID-19 has really impacted all Canadians, and governments had to focus on how do we deal with that and how do we help Canadians and move through this crisis. And so we are seeing governments starting now to talk about the federal budget, for example, and starting to think about, okay, so now that we're kind of dealing with the crisis situation, how do we kind of move into the next phase in regards to reigniting and stimulating the economy? And the federal government has been very clear in terms of ensuring that climate change and clean technology is a part of that stimulus program and their stimulus approach. So it has required patience on the industry's part, on the association's part as well. And so we do have a high level of confidence that our recommendations will be seriously considered. Obviously, the interest-free loan was something that they had pointed out in their election platform. And we have had a number of conversations with government officials over the last number of months. And the $1 billion fund is something that has been communicated a number of times, and there certainly is an appetite at the federal level. So nothing is ever guaranteed, obviously, but we do have, I would say, a high degree of confidence that the government will be looking at these very, very seriously. And we continue to wait patiently for the budget and for these programs to roll out. Obviously, you and your companies are trying to survive and to continue to move forward, and we understand how important these programs will be to really growing the industry. So we're doing everything that we can to push hard and to ensure that when government is turning their attention to economic stimulus, that clean technology, renewables such as solar and energy storage are top of mind for them.
Perfect. There's a couple write-in questions. The first one, how would you describe the health of the solar industry, and what is your view of what solar's future growth curve could look like?
I think the fundamentals for solar energy are extremely strong. So we have an industry that's very capable. We have an industry that can deploy solar and energy storage technologies at various scales and very, very quickly. We have customers who are looking for solar energy solutions. We have financiers that are willing to backstop these projects, and we have the technology that continues to advance and to lower in price rapidly over time. So the fundamentals are very, very strong. And I think part of the challenge as it relates to the smaller sector right now is just we're just a touch away from having a clear economic case for them to move forward with these types of projects. And so these types of incentives that I talked about will be extremely helpful to grow that industry. And so I think the future is certainly bright. And it does require patience. It does require resilience on our end to kind of keep moving forward there. But the fundamentals are extremely, extremely strong and very high confidence that the industry will continue to grow over time. So I think we're on the right side of history here as it relates to energy. And I think we definitely have a resilient industry that can provide solutions for our members as well.
We just have one more write-in question, which kind of tests your skill, and it might not be your department, but they're asking whether there are any grants within the agricultural sector for solar energy that you know of.
So as it relates to federal incentives, I don't believe so offhand, but that's a better question for Nick Gall, who's our Director of Distributed Energy Resources. So I can certainly follow up with you, Brian, to get a better answer to that. But as I understand it right now, I don't believe so. There may be some provincial programs. And again, Nick would be better positioned to answer those. I know Alberta had an agricultural incentive, and I think that did change, however, with the change in government as well. So it's actually, in terms of providing that type of information, part of our phase 2 website work is to get that type of information on our website as well, so we can share that with our members.
Yeah, Alberta did have the Growing Forward program and a couple launches of it at one point, but I don't know of any agricultural ones that are out there right now, other than, you know, farmers being used to very long investment periods for their payment of putting solar on.
And
but anyway,
capital cost initiative, I guess, could be applied there as
yes.
well.
So they can save on the taxation immediately on their investment. So,
Wes, one last question for you, if you don't mind. On the solar jobs front, I know you guys have been trying to bring that forward and use that as a means to, you know, advocate for some of this funding. How do you see that? How has it been used by CanSIA to put forward to the governments? And then what would you like to see all the installers on this webinar as a message they can take forward to help you with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe in the latest submission that we made to the federal government, we did indicate the jobs that can result from this as well. And I have to admit, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but jobs is really, really key, especially in this environment. And it's interesting, different governments want to hear different things, but right now all governments want to hear about jobs. And so it is really, really critical that we are bringing forward that message to all governments, whether it's federal, provincial, or even municipal governments as well. And when it comes to installers that are listening to this today, I think there's kind of two things. Obviously, each and every one of you are out there promoting the technology with your customers and within your communities as best you can from a marketing standpoint as well. But I think it is important for everyone to reach out to their federal MP as well, so member of parliament, or whether it's their provincial, local politician, MLA or MPP. So just strike up a conversation with them, start to create a relationship with them, and just educate them, number one, on the technology if they don't know very much about it, but educate them about what benefits it does provide. So low cost energy, emission-free energy, it provides customers with greater choice, and talk to them about how certain incentives or certain work that we're doing at the association level can help to bring more jobs to those communities as well. So at the end of the day, it's all about creating jobs. It's creating customer choice for Canadians. They don't want to be pigeonholed into what type of energy they need to use. They want to have choice there as well. And the more we use this technology, the faster that price will come down. And we all are moving towards that world whereby incentives will not be required. And so different segments will take longer than others, and different markets may take longer than others, depending on the price of electricity in those areas. But also just getting involved in CanSIA as well. So one thing that we need to do as an association and as an industry is not just look at incentives, but also look at what are the soft costs? Where are we spending more time or money than we need to be, and trying to work with government regulators to kind of reduce the red tape in those areas as well. So getting involved certainly with the association is another way to help communicate with us the challenges you're facing, but also bring forward some of the recommendations that we can bring forward as well. And so certainly those are some key areas. So obviously just talking in each of your communities, talking with your local politicians, and hopefully getting involved in CanREA to bring forward your expertise, your knowledge, and your resources as we all try to fight together to grow the market and make solar and energy storage easier for Canadians.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. We're running up against, we're actually over what we were saying we were going to be. So there's one more question that we'll answer offline. And from there, I really thank everybody for attending. I thank Wes for taking the time to go through your organization and, the key benefits and roles that you're helping evolve the solar industry. It's really great what you guys are doing. We've been a longtime supporter and will continue to be so. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. Thank you very much, Ed, and HES PV. You guys have been long supporters of the industry and of the association, and always a pleasure to work with you and to talk to you guys as well. Thanks again.
Thanks, Wes.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.